Scott, Mallory, how you doing? Welcome to the Bitcoin Source. Can you kickstart things off by introducing yourselves?
Yes. Hi, everyone. We're so happy to be here. I'm Mallory.
And I'm Scott. And together we are the creators of SHAmory, which is a company that creates fun Bitcoin products for kids or adults, but particularly kids, through books, games, and other things as we continue to expand.
People may know you from the book, the card game. It's kind of ubiquitous in the space, especially if you have the Bitcoin parents out there. So the first question I have for you, where did you learn or source your Bitcoin knowledge, whether it was books, courses, or even people that kind of like orange pilled you on your journey to learn about Bitcoin?
Yeah. I guess I can kick that one off.
Sure, go for it.
I was the first one out of the two of us to start going down that rabbit hole.
I know. I wonder if it would be helpful just to like a little backstory of how that happened.
Yeah, I'll kind of start with that side of things. So I'm kind of the typical story from the prior bull run, so late 2017, 2018. Kind of started getting interested, caught my eye, and then as things cooled down from that run up, realized, okay, there's something here. I'm going to learn more. And I really, at that time, there were some podcasts out there, not too many, but really more so on the book side of things. I read the Bitcoin Standard, which obviously many people do, read the white paper. Those are the first two books. And then as it relates to SHAmory itself, which we can get into, but the game teaches about Bitcoin mining. And it was while reading the white paper and the part where it kind of talks about mining and how that works, that kind of first laid the foundation to learn about that process altogether. So, as simple as it sounds, the white paper itself really was one of the foundations at the very beginning to everything. And then, obviously since that time and the past, 4 or 5 years, podcasts in particular have bubbled up, and we've been lucky enough to be in a lot of them, become friends with them. So everything from, Once Bitten with Daniel Prince, listen to a lot of the Pressing Pitches podcast to get the more economical side of things. So just lots of stuff daily in your earbud.
Yeah, I can. So I got into Bitcoin through Scott. So he started talking to me a little bit about it, like over the dinner table, like some random side conversations. And to be honest, I wasn't that interested in the beginning. But once Scott said, we have this, we have our daughter and we want to start teaching her about different types of money that are out there, I was like, oh, that's actually a little bit more interesting. Like that is something that I think this next generation really does need. So that's when I started becoming a little bit more interested. So Scott, taught me, kind of got me up to speed. And then from there, we started doing local meetups. We started going to conferences because we had our products. And that's when I became like really passionate about this. And I learned a lot from listening to podcasts or reading books. But the most valuable way that I think I learned is just talking to other people in the space. When we're at these conferences, parents or, aunts, uncles, grandparents, whatever it is, teachers, they come up to us and they talk to us about what Bitcoin means to them and why they think it's important to educate the next generation. And then we engage in conversation that way. And those are the interactions that really stick the most with me. And I think, I learned a lot from people, and hopefully they learn a little bit from us.
Yeah, I love that. Really quickly, just, that's kind of like a perfect segue into like my next question. But I will say this, like learning about Bitcoin is difficult. And what I find so unique and in a sense ingenious about what you as a couple have done as far as the card game space or even the book reading space is like bedtime stories, right? Talking about, like kind of parents being the first set of teachers and the first people that, your kids learn from and they observe what we do. So it's like if we're teaching our kids about sound money from a very finite state, a very infant state, I think that that's going to be the next set of Bitcoiners coming up in the space where you won't have people as flummoxed about what is blockchain, what is Bitcoin. So thank you for kind of bringing that game into the world to help parents all over the planet. Hopefully it becomes ubiquitous enough that everybody has one by their nightstand for their kid when it's time for bed.
For sure. And one of the things to Mallory's point, when we start talking to these people in person, we love hearing the stories of, the grandparents coming over and reading it for the first time or playing the game. That really is what motivates us. And kind of when we leave the conference being like, okay, what do we want to build next type thing?
Yeah.
It's hard for most adults to understand Bitcoin, right? Like, I mean, they want to say it's a young person's game, it's a millennial game, but how does the SHAmory card game teach and make Bitcoin fun for kids?
Good question. Yeah. Do you want to take it? You go.
Sure. I can take it. So one, the nice thing is, I think, first off, you don't have to know anything about Bitcoin in order to play it. So you can pick it up. You could be someone who has never even heard the word Bitcoin, and you could just play the game once you watch the videos. That's step one, really. So there's a zero barrier to entry other than watching a YouTube video to learn the rules. From there, as they start, hopefully, one, becoming more comfortable with some of the terminology that they see in the game. So everything from simple like Bitcoin or target, difficulty adjustment, attack, those little vocab words. Hopefully start laying in the back of their heads. While maybe they still don't understand what they are yet, they start seeing them down, and maybe the next time, like, oh, Dad, what is an attack? How does that work? So it's that base level introduction to then let them kind of have that discussion happen. And to your point, hopefully, because it is a physical product, it's bringing people together. So it's not, we get asked all the time, oh, can you make it an app version? Or did you think about doing an app version? And for a very short period of time, we probably thought about it, but we purposely made everything physical because we wanted to be able to bring people together, have the conversation, have the family time or the friend time, whatever it is, so that when those questions come up, they can be answered on the spot. And then from there, if you go even deeper, the game is also STEM authenticated. So if you're a teacher or a STEM academy or in that more traditional education space, you can easily tie the concepts that are being learned in the game to the curriculum that you're supposed to be teaching in that school or in that STEM center. So hopefully bringing things full circle for those educators, whether it's a parent or a traditional educator or anything in between.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say that we also, Scott did a great job talking about the SHAmory card game, but we also have the book, Goodnight Bitcoin, which was created for a little bit of a younger audience, inspired by our 2-year-old at the time when we wrote it. She's now 3. But this also teaches and starts introducing some really basic terminology, like miners, blocks, Satoshi, 2009, all sorts of goodies in this. And so if you have an even younger audience where you think a card game might not be quite there yet, the book is really nice. You can read it before bed, put it on the coffee table, those types of things.
Yeah, and kind of a backstory to this too is that I'm the lead writer for a Bitcoin publication called Satoshi's Journal, and the founder of the company, Jeremy Garcia, he's also a parent. I believe his son is 2 years old as well. He raves about SHAmory. Like, he's been so inspired by the game, the book, that he wants Satoshi's Journal to kind of write their own children's book down the road. But he reads the Goodnight Bitcoin to his son every night. He said he loves the moon and how it looks like a Bitcoin. He just loves the game. So I had to kind of shout out Jeremy because I know he's going to be excited to see this episode when it comes out.
And I've enjoyed talking with Jeremy on Twitter over the past few months. So it's always good to bring things full circle.
I know we love when we hear stories like that because the monsters are they're cute for little kids, but they're nice for adults to look at too. And I'm sure because you're a parent, you've had this experience, but the one thing about reading kids' books is that some of them can be just so bad. So it's enjoyable when an adult can also enjoy a kid's book, right?
And educational at the same time. So
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
Both ends of the spectrum.
There's actually an interesting story where my mom was doing our nighttime routine. I think Scott and I were at dinner or something. So she was doing the nighttime routine with our daughter. And we've tried to talk to my mom a few times about Bitcoin, but she doesn't get it. She's not really that interested in getting it. So we take a step back and, we'll let her to come to us if she ever does. So anyway, she's doing this bedtime routine and my daughter gets to pick out 3 books before she goes to bed. And Goodnight Bitcoin luckily happens to be one of her favorites. So she picks it out on her own and my mom opens it and she reads it to her. So we get home from dinner and my mom says, Charlotte chose to read Goodnight Bitcoin, but I'm just wondering, how did you create the character Satoshi? How would you have come up with that name? And it was such a pivotal point for us because clearly we didn't come up with that name, right? But it was the first time that my mom had asked me about Bitcoin. Instead of us just telling it to her and her not really taking it in, she was interested and she was engaging in the conversation. So, that's just a really small example of how, something like a little kid's book can help all ages and can just start that family conversation.
Exactly. And, your whole entire platform, when I looked at it, traversed through it, you're not only doing books, but you're also helping and giving back into underserved communities to teach them about Bitcoin through your products. And one of the products that I saw and what I found very profound was, you teaching kids about low time preference from a very early age. Could you kind of explain or break down the Sats ledger?
Yeah, for sure. So the Sats Ledger is a product that we're lucky enough to be able to resell. So for those that aren't familiar with it, it was created by a gentleman, MTC BTC on Twitter. And he launched that product around the same time we created the game. So it kind of came up at the same time, got to know each other, supported each other like everything else in Bitcoin. So no competition, wanted to see each other grow. And he's based out of the UK. So us being here in the States, being able to more easily get the Sats Ledger in the hands of people around us. We're able to sell it through SHAmory and have it be part of the family. And it's a great way. This easiest way to think of it is if you're a parent, maybe you're giving your kids allowance and you want to give them a Bitcoin allowance, which would be awesome. The ledger is literally 2 physical books where you can go in and each page you can record the action that they're doing to earn their allowance. So maybe they're cleaning the dinner table or taking out the trash or mowing the lawn, whatever it is, or schoolwork. And so they're recording the transaction. So that's part of your ledger. That's your act. And then you're recording when did it happen, how much they earned, and it stacks up all on one page. When you get to the bottom of the page, you can tally it up. That's a block. So each page is a block. So once again, it's teaching them terminology that's learned in Bitcoin. And every few blocks, you can actually have difficulty adjustments. So maybe next week, the chores are getting a little bit harder in order to earn the same amount of Bitcoin. So it's a fun way to both, allow them to start interacting with Bitcoin through what they're earning, but also to your specific question, it's teaching them how that time preference can change where, okay, yeah, maybe things are a little easier right now. They're getting a little harder next week. And I need to value what I'm earning a little differently and kind of have that preference to say, I'm working really hard for what I'm earning. I don't want to just go off and get an ice cream cone that's going to melt and I'm going to eat in 30 seconds. Maybe I want to save this for a few years from now or whatever it is. I want to put some away for something bigger and then keep some for another sort of thing. So it's a nice way for them to start earning and learning that way.
And, I think it'll be good down the road too for like chores, like you mentioned. Like, obviously my kid is too young to do chores, but, some people's parents, pay their kids for doing chores. And I think that, having a ledger and having a stake in how that blockchain is created, what the protocol actually does, will be helpful for kids. Will like ingrain that kind of knowledge into them. So when they do encounter Bitcoin or blockchain is mentioned or hash rate is mentioned or mining protocol is mentioned, they're gonna be like, wait a minute, my parents made me do something involving mining. I know that answer. So, that might be helpful for them down the road.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. And, earlier I mentioned about, parents being the first teachers. And Mallory, this question is kind of for you. How has, SHAmory, all the Bitcoin education that you've done, how has that educated your family on sound money?
I mean, one of the philosophies that Scott and I have is that we never push Bitcoin onto our friends and family. I feel like people are less interested and truly engaged if you push something on them. But all of our friends, family, and many people through, people that we meet on Twitter know that we're in the Bitcoin space. So when they're ready to talk about it, then they come to us. And that's what I like about it. But Goodnight Bitcoin is great for that because it talks about all of the basic terminology. It talks about when it created. It talks about Satoshi and how. It talks about miners and sats and nodes. And it just does it in such a cute, it's hard to push back on it. The monsters and the illustrations in the book are they're very juvenile, but they're interested by adults as well. So I feel like, almost anybody can engage and can really learn from it.
Part of our philosophy as parents, as it relates to kind of Charlotte, is treating her like an adult, essentially. I mean, I think most people think of kids as, always being young and they're not ready to learn things. But, she's part of the company. She's part of the family. She helps pack the game. She helps ship things off. She takes them to the post office with us. She gets excited when we send them to their new home and that sort of stuff. So that's also another way that we kind of integrated into teaching her, this is us going to work, that sort of thing. So that's just another byproduct of being able to create this together and have her be a part of it all.
Yeah. And I think that's, you're doing a great job. And I think that kids, like you said, you shouldn't push things on them, but you should also kind of foster that positive, interaction with something. And it's like subconsciously, they're not even realizing that they're learning something, but it'll click down the road. So I think that's ingenious what you guys are doing.
Thank you very much.
And my last question is, and this is kind of something I wanted to peel back onto because I know it's been mentioned, but you talk about SHAmory's future as a game, as a card game, as a book. But what I'd love to know is more about how, you know, you won STEM's Best 2021 by Newsweek and STEM.org. Like, I would love to kind of hear, you know, your journey with Bitcoin and like how you got the company to kind of earn that achievement.
Yeah, that was.
No, that was an incredible achievement. We're very honored to be on that list.
Yeah, it was unexpected and fun. We first got connected with STEM.org actually through my prior occupation, so I knew of the organization to even be aware of this sort of thing. And then when we created the game, went through there's a submission process where you have to submit whether it's a book or games or whatever else somebody's trying to get STEM authenticated. Went through that formal process, and a few months later got an email saying, hey, you know, we looked what you guys did, looked it over, it matches the, you know, STEM curriculum, and we want to authenticate it to be STEM authenticated, which is crazy to think that something, you know, this was back in 2020 now, that had come out of our head a few months prior is now not only real, but is getting an authentication mark like that from an organization that is, you know, nationally and worldwide known, and this sort of thing. So that was, you know, achievement number one that we were super proud of. And then it was a few months later as 2021 approached where we, once again, this side of things wasn't anything we applied for or paid to be a part of in any way, but we were made aware that STEM.org and Newsweek magazine had selected the game to be, like you mentioned, best of STEM. I believe there was 100 different people on the list out of the, I think there's 4,000 or 5,000 products that have the authentication, but best of STEM 2021 by Newsweek. So it's above our heads up there in Newsweek magazine, listed in there, which is definitely something we could have never imagined prior to that. And so it's just a really cool thing, one, just to have, but also, like we've kind of talked about, we are very early in the space, especially when it comes to teaching kids about this sort of stuff. But before we know it, I'm sure there'll be even more traditional learning environments that are looking to teach about Bitcoin, and being able to have an authentication mark like that will hopefully help us be part of the curriculum that gets put into these schools and centers and whatever else may bubble up. Like we're already, you know, there's the Bitcoin focused groups that are doing education around the world that we love being part of already, and expanding that into the traditional space will be really fun as well.
You know, speaking of curriculum too, like I know for Black Bitcoin Billionaires, which I'm the lead writer for, Bitcoin Zay, he's kind of intertwined some of the educational stuff that you guys have into his curriculum. And, you know, I found that to be profound as well too. So SHAmory is definitely going places. Like once you start getting these labels or purported labels, you know, that's when educational platforms, schools start to pay attention to it. So, you know, I truly think that this might end up being, you know, one of those books in the preschools, in the kindergartens, in the elementary schools where, you know, kids want to have like a soft introduction to Bitcoin, and SHAmory might be just that.
We would love for that to be the case. Yes, absolutely.
Very much. We love working with Isaiah and everything else that he's doing.
Give your shout outs, your connections, how people can get in contact with SHAmory or purchase more products. Give the audience, you know, your social handles and everything where people can get in contact with you. For
sure. Well, first off, thanks again for having and for everybody listening. So everything we do is sold through the website. So SHAmory.com, SHAMORY. Ship worldwide. So whether you're here in the States or anywhere else, feel free to come along. I did go ahead and make a promo code. So feel free to drop in Bitcoin Source checkout and you'll get 10% off your order. So feel free to utilize that, and we will happily send some card games, books, magnets, stats ledgers your way. We do have a new book that will be out in the coming months, as well as another product shortly. So for the holiday season, perfect time to come get those goodies. On Twitter, our company handle is Play SHAmory, and we're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And I myself, I'm on Twitter, Scott M. Sibley. Mallory's the lucky one in the family. She gets to divert her eyes from that happening. So you won't find her there, but both of us can be reached at either Scott at SHAmory.com or Mallory at SHAmory.com if you're looking to send an email, or just through the website. There's a contact form that you're welcome to submit, and we love reaching out. So don't be scared to shoot us an email, a DM, smoke signal, whatever you need to. Oh, actually, the other thing to mention for both yourself and anybody else, we will also be launching an affiliate program shortly. So if people are interested in sharing the word about SHAmory and earning some money back. That'll hopefully be launched before the end of August, so keep your eye out for that. We're excited to start onboarding people through that mechanism, and like we mentioned, we've built everything through zero paid marketing, so it's all been word of mouth. Like you talked about, you heard about us from Zay and Jeremy and other people, and so we want to be able to reward those people that have talked and spread our word. So we're excited to get that up and running in that way.
Definitely, and I'll definitely be looking forward to new books that you have releasing, and even some new games, board games, card games, whatever you have coming down the road. Like, I'm definitely a supporter, and I think that it's going to help me being a better dad on those nights when my daughter doesn't want to sleep. So thank you for that. Scott and Mallory, once again, thank you for being on the Bitcoin Source. I hope people find this podcast, this episode insightful. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thanks, everybody.